and welcome to Mythmakers. Mythmakers is the podcast for fantasy fans and fantasy creatives, brought to you by the Oxford Centre for Fantasy. And it's always great fun in my place here as running the centre is to meet fellow authors. My name is Julia Golding, and today I am joined by Dutch author, hold on to this because I'm trying very hard to get this right, Yorick Goldewijk, which is spelt, if you're looking for his book, I'm going to say this because this is important, it's Goldewijk, Goldewijk. And here is his wonderful book, which is called Movies Showing Nowhere. And this has been translated from the Dutch by Laura Watkinson. Now, first of all, congratulations on this book. It's very thought-provoking. It's a middle grade fantasy. We'll hear a little bit more about this in a moment. Very unusual, very original. So I'm very excited to talk to you about it. But first of all, I wanted to take you back in time because that is one of the themes in the book. And your main character, Cate, is about 12 when we join her. So where was Yorick when he was 12, and what kind of fantasy stories was it turning him on to the whole idea of writing fantasy?
Yeah, well, when I was about 12 years old, I know my favorite book must have been Ronja the Robber's Daughter from Astrid Lindgren. Which is actually also, it's a fantasy book, actually. And it was such a book, you know, what you, when you're young, you have it more often, I think, than when you're an adult, that you really fall in love with. And, you know, you're actually really sad when it's over. You want to stay in that world forever. That's what I experienced with that book. And that's also the book, I think, because I was already writing before then. I was writing little stories and I fantasized about being a writer. But when I read this book, I was sort of certain that I really wanted to be a writer. So my first real efforts at that age were sort of copies of Ronja the Robber's Daughter that I was writing.
That sort of imitation phase is so important, isn't it? I did exactly the same thing. I've got books from the end of primary level where it goes from some kind of Children of Green Know, you know, Lucy Boston story to some kind of Narnia story to some kind of space thing, because it was following what I was reading, and it's absolutely how you learn to write.
Yeah, and you get so enthusiastic then that you just want to do that, and you don't know you don't have your own voice yet, so you're really looking for things to hold on to, and slowly something of yourself evolves then.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So how did you get from the little boy at 12, well, not so little at 12, are you? How did you get from there to being the author you are today and this particular book?
Well, I always wrote since then, actually. And the stories got longer and longer. And I think at the age of 20, maybe, I actually finished my first novel. It was for adults, by the way. And I had worked on it for years, and I just neglected everything else, my study, my friends, everything in the rest of my life. But it got rejected. I sent it to 4 publishers and they all rejected it. And then I just continued writing. I was a bit disappointed, of course, but I continued writing. I only started writing children's books when my son was born, because I had the idea, as many people maybe have, to start writing a book for my son. And that became my first book. I had it finished really quickly, like in 6 weeks. Was done with it, I thought, and I was really, 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 really happy with it. I never had written something so well, I thought. So I sent it over to a publisher, and I was convinced that everything would turn out fine. But I got rejected again, of course. After half a year, I got a small note saying, no, sorry. And then I rewrote the whole thing and thought about it a bit more, and I sent it to a different publisher, and again got rejected after half a year. And that repeated like 15 times, I think. And then the 16th time, which was 9 years after I started writing, there was finally a publisher that wanted to have my book. and it's, by the way, really cool because it's the same publisher that also did the Dutch translation of Ronja the Robber Starter. So it was a fantastic publisher, and the circle was round. So that was when it really started. And then all of a sudden I had written so many things before that never got published. And all of a sudden I had a publisher, and then it was like, a stream that just continued on. So I continued writing, and it was full of ideas. And then I wrote a second, it's a series, the first book. I wrote the second book, and then I also did a picture book with my wife. And then after that came a movie showing nowhere, which was actually also a little bit accidental, I guess, because I was working on something else. But I just got stuck all the time with that story. So I decided, at first I thought to do something light in between, which was the start of movie showing nowhere. And all of a sudden it sort of swept me off my feet. I guess I was just completely obsessed by what it turned into. And then it just sort of happened, the story, I guess.
So people can understand what we're talking about, because it is an unusual story. Do you want to give us a little bit of a idea of the, like the back of the book? What story are we reading when we pick this up?
It's the story of Cate, whose mum has died when she was giving birth to her. And her dad is like, he's still in a sort of a mourning state, actually never really got over it. But it's not all what's wrong with him. He's just kind of, not there the whole time. So she doesn't really know him, speak with him. She doesn't hear any stories about her mother also. So Cate just has her own life, and she has her own interests. She walks around with her camera and takes pictures of all kinds of very normal things that actually are so normal that nobody really sees them anymore. And she finds these things interesting. So she has a very distinct and quirky look at the world. And then all of a sudden she learns that the cinema in the city is opened again. It's an old cinema, and there's a very weird lady who's running the cinema. And in this cinema, there are not ordinary movies that are shown, but there's something very special about the cinema. I don't want to tell too much about it.
No, that's right. This is why I gave you the job of saying, because there's some wonderful twists in the plot. But I think we can say it's a magical cinema.
It's a magical cinema, yes.
Yeah.
Yes. You can do something in the cinema that I think everyone in the world would like to be able to do. And Cate also wants this, but she's also really scared to actually confront herself with her deepest wish. So she slowly learns more about herself, also about her father, because her father is also, there's more about him than just this empty sack who is sitting in his chair the whole day. And as a reader, you slowly learn how things are really put together.
Yes. I'm going to stop you there so you don't reveal some of the twists.
Thank you.
So this book in Dutch won the Golden Pencil Prize for the best Dutch children's book of the year. And it was shortlisted for the Flemish Boon Literature Prize. So Pushkin Press, who children's books, who we know very well at the Oxford Centre for Fantasy, they have a mission to find the best in fantasy around the world and bring it into English, because a lot goes the other way, and their mission is to bring books the other way. And so it's why we've got this opportunity to read your wonderful book. So C.S. Lewis, who obviously is an Oxford fantasy writer, he said that, there's really two things in books, lots more than two, but two main things. One is the words, which are like the plot. And then there's the secret atmosphere, the theme, or he called it the kappa, because he was classically trained. So referring to the Greek alphabet. In movies showing nowhere, it seemed to me that kind of secret atmosphere was grief, and how we deal with grief and how we emerge from it.
Yep.
Would you agree that's the kind of secret atmosphere of the book, or is there something else that you'd like to highlight at this?
No, I don't. I think it's grief. Maybe it's more specific. It's about the way that nothing lasts forever, everything passes by, and which is sad because you can never hold on to things forever, which is also very important that it happens, and also very beautiful, because if everything was to last forever, you would never cherish anything or love anything anymore. I think it's the idea of knowing that it's not forever that makes things worthwhile. So it's a little bit about, I think, embracing life at the moment that it's happening, instead of maybe, also when you get older, you're busy with all kinds of things that are not really the core of your life, but are just things you have to deal with, and you have to take care of. And sometimes the actual important things are sort of unseen, passing you by. And the book is more like a sort of a cry out to embrace it, to not let it slip away at the moment that it's happening, and also to deal with things that are passing by, and to cherish these things, and that you can always do something about it. It's never too late. That you can always, take things in your own hand and make them yours.
So the idea that Cate takes pictures of things which other people don't notice is part of that capturing those moments, isn't it? That you notice. It's like, have your eyes open, everyone. Okay. So one of the things in it that is great fun is that it celebrates weirdness. Cate is delightfully weird. I mean, in a really nice way. She doesn't fit in at school. She hasn't yet found her crowd, which I think is the experience of many a child who feels school isn't their thing. But on the other hand, I often hear people saying that now the sort of geek nerd culture is now mainstream. So just take, for example, those people who played Dungeons and Dragons and loved Tolkien back in the 80s. Don't remember those days. That was deeply weird, and
it's cool now.
It's cool.
Yeah, that's true.
So what do you think about this whole theme of being the other English word for this is being a misfit?
Yeah.
You think I wonder if we all feel we actually are in some way misfits.
I think everybody does really think they're misfits, and everybody who seems to be not a misfit is, I think, someone who has just adapted and who is not showing everything, and who's just learned how to maneuver in a sort of a smooth way in the world, and maybe has forgotten how to be a misfit, because I think everybody is weird in a certain way always. And that's, I think, why there are so many books about misfits, because it refers to everybody, and everybody feels like, they see themselves in them, in these characters for a certain way. And like for Cate, it's also not different. I think there's also another guy, a story about another guy who was actually in love with her, and she hits him because she thinks he's just making fun of her. And that seems to be like a very popular dude, but he's also actually secretly in love with her and doesn't know how to say it to her, and also gets punched in the face for it. So everybody has their own quirky, embarrassing selves that is hidden in themselves somewhere, I guess.
Yeah, and that's very comforting to find out that you are not alone in being alone. And
also, I think that what's cool about Cate, but not many people have. I think I wasn't like that when I was young. That she sort of embraces this weirdness, and she says, "Well, I'll just be this, and I don't care if anyone else likes it." Although she actually really does care a little bit more than that, of course. But she does have a sort of an attitude, which makes her a bit cool, I think.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I was reading
being weird as well. She says something like, I don't know exactly how it is in English, but like if you're openly weird, you're actually sort of invincible.
That's the translation.
Yeah.
I think it's invincible rather than powerful, but it is where you get power from. I suppose another way of thinking about this is if you're easy in your own skin, if you're when everybody else isn't, and then that gives you a real sense of power, core strength. I've noticed that you are not just a writer, you're also an illustrator and a musician. So how does all of this, your creativity, create your own unique, delightfully weird world? Do you illustrate
illustrator
your own...
is not really true. By the way, I wanted to be an illustrator, and I always did that on primary school, but that's sort of slipped away, I guess. I like to draw sometimes still, but it's not on a professional way. So, what music I do, actually compose music. It's like my other job. And I always do this like for podcasts, for example, or for games, or I create music for other people's stories in that way. But also for my own audiobooks, I create music. So I think always like music and language are really very similar, actually. Because, language has a rhythm and it has also like a melody. When you're talking, you're sort of singing a little bit. I mean, your voice goes up and down and raises and softens. So it's very similar to me. And also as an art form, music is something dynamic. So it starts somewhere and it evolves in time, which is the same with a story that you're reading, of course. So they're two very similar art forms to me. And it's also very important for me always when I'm writing, I have to listen to music. So my books always start just with a mood, nothing else. I don't have a plot or anything. It's completely unimportant. It's just a mood that starts it all, that I know, this is something. And that mood also is very easily activated by music. So I have certain playlists for each story. I have a different playlist with music that is suitable to this specific mood. And I keep on playing that all the time when I'm writing. And if I'm writing without the music, it's notably just more rough to actually write something. So they're really both very much the same for me and very important.
That's fascinating, because it sounds like you almost compose your books.
Yeah, well, that is how it works. I think
mean, that is a word for writing, but very, very closely compose them. Yeah,
it's true. Yeah.
And that actually takes me to my next question really well, which is, you talked about you doing your audiobooks, and here we are talking about one of your books in translation. So if you've got that sensitivity to language, as you obviously have, have you noticed a shift? I've called it the weather pattern when I was thinking about this. So has that mood shifted from Dutch to English, would you say? Or the two languages are quite close, of course, in the great family of languages.
Yeah, I think it's more at its place, I think, in English, which is maybe weird to say because I've, of course, written it in Dutch and I'm, more familiar with Dutch, and the Dutch preciseness of words to me is more easily conceivable than in the English words. But still, there is something about the English language, I think, and this. It's a magical story, of course, but not. It has also a sort of a realism. So it's somewhere in between there, which feels really English to me. So also because now we're talking with the movie rights for the Dutch film have been sold. And we've also been talking to a lot of directors about the setting of the book. And we were all in agreement on that it's not a typical Dutch village where it should be. To me, I see more like an English sort of movie village than a typical Dutch town. So in that way, I guess it's really good. It found its sort of origin place almost, I think, in the English language.
Oh, that's absolutely fascinating. And you've very carefully not given it a specific location. The places are vividly realized, but we're not told it's Rotterdam or Amsterdam or anything like that. It's very much its own.
Yeah, I think I never do that, by the way. Give it put it somewhere, my stories in a real geographic exact place because something you lose something in the story, I guess. I don't know why, but I want to keep it realistic. It could be in this world, of course, but it doesn't have to be, and it doesn't have to be. It's like when you're illustrating and you're showing the face of your main character, and that's then the face of your main character, and there's no other face possible anymore, which is the same, I think, here. It should be, I think everybody has their own feeling of where it takes place. Maybe it takes place, for someone in Spain, it would be in a very hot town, for example.
It doesn't feel like,
I don't know, but I think it's good to leave that open. And to me, well, like I said, it's very much, a British kind of feel what it has. Yeah,
it definitely. As the Brit on this is called, I could definitely imagine it filmed in some small town here, and you wouldn't feel it was lost anything. In fact, it probably would just really sit very well in that landscape.
Yeah,
so,
exactly.
You've just earlier you were saying how you start with a mood, and this leads to a question about plotting, and we absolutely won't give away the twists and turns because it's a beautifully constructed book. In a way, it shifts your understanding of what's going on. But do you do that as something you discover as you write, or is it something that after a little bit of writing, you're beginning to plot your own reversal?
Yeah, it's a discovery for me, I think. Like I said, it always starts with a mood. This specific book, by the way, started with, very it's fitting, started with a photograph of myself from like 20 years ago when I was sitting in a cinema myself, and I didn't know I had this photo anymore, and I found it again, and all of a sudden something spoke to me like there's a story here, something mysterious is going on in this cinema, and that's enough for me to start. It will stay in my head for weeks, and it will slowly evolve, and maybe a character arises from it, or maybe a short scene arises from it, or a place where I want to write about. But it's all separate things that are connected to each other by this specific mood that starts it all. So there was no plot except for the idea of a cinema where something mysterious was going on. And that was all I had to go by. And then I just started writing, and at a certain point, I thought of this relationship between Cate and her mom, that her mom had died. And then I immediately went completely to the ending of the book. I wrote the ending, like one of the first things that are really chapters that were really finished. I wanted to test out if it would work, if it would be as cool as I hoped it could be. And then when that worked, I sort of started to work backwards. And of course, without all this planning, because I don't plan anything and just let it flow, I stumbled upon lots of big problems, specifically because the book has, in terms of plot, it's a bit complicated. Things have to really, if one thing isn't done right, then the whole thing sort of collapses. And a lot of things, seemed like I could never get them to fit together. So I often had the feeling like I couldn't go on with the book, and I just had to give up. And then I was sort of pondering and feeling bad for like a week, and couldn't sleep, and just keep on thinking about how can I solve this? How can I solve this? It's never going to work. And then all of a sudden, there's always sort of an epiphany. I don't know how you call it, but something that sort of a light. And I think, oh, this is it. And not only do I solve the problem then, but there's also something else somewhere else that gets much better all of a sudden. Mm-hmm. So it was, as I said, a discovery. It's always like I feel that the story maybe just already exists somewhere. I think Stephen King said something like that as well. Like he was referring to an archaeologist, who's sort of slowly discovering this whole dinosaur bone thing by just really patiently rubbing away the earth around it and not messing it up. it sort of feels like that sometimes. Like I know that the story is already there. It was in this first moment of this picture that I looked at it and I thought, here's this mood, here's a story, and I just have to discover it. And I can mess it up. I can just take wrong turns and lose the whole story. But if I'm sort of careful enough, then it will unravel itself, and then you will have a book.
That's a lovely description. And I very much empathize with that, because when I write, I prefer the discovery route, but I'm writing puzzle thrillers at the moment. So that necessitates a bit more planning.
Yeah.
And it's against the grain, but it's necessary because of the nature of that book. But I love the idea of being an archaeologist. So I'm trying not to give too much away, but the cinema is at the heart of your story. And there's an element here about using it as a way of examining your past. Let me put it like that.
Yep.
So in a way, the cinema is a form of therapy, in my view. Is this something you were thinking about? Because there is like a metaphorical or an application of what it might mean in our real world from what was happening in the fantasy version of this.
Yeah. I think, everybody has things in the past that are, they'd like to do something with, or like to relive, but with the knowledge of how they are now. So in that sense, it is a sort of a therapy, of course, to even as an experiment of the mind to do something like that.
It comes with its dangers, though, doesn't it? Just to play devil's advocate here, that there are some sort of talking therapies that do a lot of taking you back. And sometimes you can put a construction around your memory, and which may not be reliable. Yeah,
that is true. Actually, also, I've had that several times, that there was a special vacation, for example, and I wanted to return there again to that place it was with my wife. We sort of met in Spain, and it was really special, of course. And then a few years later, we went back to the same place, and it sort of spoils then the actual memory of then, because it gets sort of overwritten maybe by new things that are not as special as this memory, because you always, of course, change the things that really happen. I mean, what you remember is not really what happened that moment, I think. I think
this is all the richness of your book. This is the thought pattern it sent me on. I think I'd really encourage, even if you're an adult, don't be put off by the fact that it's a middle grade, because I think it's got a level at which you will meet it as an adult, as well as being the perfect book for the 10, 11-year-old, 12-year-old in your life. Because it certainly made me think about the place of memory and painful memories and good memories in my life. So this idea that fantasy can put a frame around something in our real world, I sometimes use the idea it's like a laboratory where you put the way we treat memory, and you've used this idea of a cinema as your little laboratory for that. Are there other things you want to put in your laboratory to have a look at, future books that you've got lined up?
Yes. I am now working at another book, which is more, I think, more like about the world, the way the world is going now and the way people are living. It's sort of what I think. I mean, I don't want to put in a morale or a message in my book. Not specifically, by the way, but I of course, I think about things, and I have a specific opinion about things, and feel very strongly about other things. So they naturally come into my book. I always like books to be, they have to be nice to read, but they also should be thought-provoking. I think, they should be able to put you on in a different perspective of things, or make you look at yourself and learn something. Or there should be more about the book than just having a fun read, which I always read books that have that as well, and I think that's important. So I always look for something more than just this nice story. And this next story, I think, because everything I've written so far is really different from each other. And this is more like a sort of, I don't know how you say this in English, but a critical look at how we spend our lives as human beings on the planet. Also, what makes us beautiful is maybe also what makes us dangerous to ourselves and to the planet. There's something sort of controversial in ourselves that two powers that are opposing each other that come from the same root in ourselves. So it's almost impossible not to be a human being and create music and art and to love each other. To do that and to not also have this, more dangerous, darker side. So it's kind of complicated what I'm trying to say here because it's the first time I'm trying to put it in words.
It's the Promethean aspect, isn't it? So
really?
It's like Prometheus. So the giver of fire.
Exactly. So
but that entails punishment. So that's why the romantic poets like Byron were so interested in Prometheus, because it's the overreacher, the person who goes too far, and that's what we are. It's our splendor and our failure.
Yeah,
that's a deep place to land on. So let's hold that, because that's a really good thought. So, do you have for us to share with us a tip in the world of fantasy? It could be something you've read, something you've watched, or even something that you've thought of as you're writing that for other fantasy creatives out there, what would be your tip?
I think I have something, but it's really very different from what I'm writing myself, but I really liked it a lot. And it's called Nevernight. It's a book series. Maybe you know it. I don't know how is Jay Kristoff from the top of my head is the writer. So it's also about a girl, by the way. And she's, going to a school to become a killer, which is kind of maybe almost like a cliche kind of fantasy.
Yeah, the assassin thing. Yeah.
Yeah. But it's done so well, and the whole setting of the world is also really original. It's sort of a little bit like an old-fashioned Italian kind of world. It's very much like with a sort of a classical feel it has. And the book is really very good in its plot. It's really getting you constantly on your toes, and you're constantly misguessing what's going to happen. And the girl is a really cool character that's very complex too. So I haven't, I started reading this because a friend of mine said it was good, and I didn't really know what I was starting to read. It wasn't something I'd normally read. So I was really surprised by it. So that would be a tip from me.
Thank you.
And also more in the children's books, by the way, Lampy from Annette Schaap, which is also a Dutch writer. Also from Pushkin, by the way.
Yes.
Wonderful. It's a children's book, but it's also for older readers. I think it's a really wonderful read. It's an actual typical fairy tale kind of magical story. Really beautiful.
That one I have read, and it's beautifully illustrated as well.
Yeah, by herself.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah, really cool.
Thank you. That's well, I'll certainly look that up. So we always finish by imagining where in all the fantasy worlds, by which I mean anything from books, film, TV, whatever, games. Where is the best place for something? And in honor of your cinema, with its ability to examine our memories, where would you like to go back? So I'm thinking here, you could be looking in Galadriel's mirror. You could be looking in Dumbledore's Pensieve, or you could even pack up your own cinema and take it with you. Where would you like to go and examine memories of characters and see what the past was like?
So I can also go into the memories of other people.
Definitely. Because I think these things work like that, don't they? It's not the mechanism, the cinema, the mirror, the Pensieve is available for you to look at other people's memories.
Yeah, that's true. Well, let me see. I think I would love to go back to a time where, I don't know, when science, maybe like someone like Albert Einstein would be nice, I guess, because of his the way he lived, I think, and also the way he was able to really discover actually magical things. I think he was the one also who said, there are two ways to live your life. One is to think nothing's a miracle, and one is to think everything's a miracle. And I think he lived his life as the second one. And of course, there's still a lot to discover in the world. The universe is still like a completely mysterious, weird place with things we couldn't still conceive how they would be in reality, I think. But he, of course, did some really big discoveries about how time, space is bent, completely getting loose, away from the old-fashioned Newton situation where everything is the way it is. So I would like to go back to the moment that he was sort of starting to be aware that something big was going on, and he was at the verge of discovering it. Because I think that's something I always, also in my books, also how Cate looks at the world, as if there's something to be discovered behind a door or a wall somewhere. There's something magical just behind the real, maybe dull world around us. There's something, just a little bit outside of where we can see. There's something there could turn off everything around. And I think that Einstein actually, had this moment, and where he actually looked behind his wall or looked behind the door and saw reality in a completely new way, which is just really exciting, I think.
So we're going to have to bring Einstein into some other world so we can go back to him. So something like a Star Trek world or something where we can go back to him in order to examine it, I think, within the rules of my game here. I think that listening to you describe Einstein and the fascinating, what you're looking there is the encounter with an extraordinary mind. Yeah. And I was thinking that the fantasy worlds where I would like to do this journey is the ones which are most complete, and you've got characters where you think they have something interesting to tell us, and perhaps also the ones that live a very long time. So there's the obvious people that would be great fun, like hitch a ride in Gandalf's memory, for example. Mm-hmm. Would be great, but that's perhaps a bit obvious. I was thinking that maybe it would be really interesting to go into the bit in Narnia that isn't covered between the magician's nephew and the Lion and the Witch and the Wardrobe. And I suppose the character that would give you that access is Aslan.
I have to admit that I haven't read it yet.
Ah, well, gosh.
I should though, I think, because
they are, in terms of an English-speaking world, they are like everybody, well, not everybody, a lot of people, they are their entryway to fantasy. They're easier to read than The Hobbit. So probably a younger reader tends to find them at sort of 8 and 9, whereas The Hobbit is a bit more of a challenge. But yeah, highly recommended. There's a whole sort of, the Narnian stories go from the creation of Narnia to the end of Narnia, like a whole sort of biblical scope. So there is bits there's jumps in history, and I'd love to see what happened in those.
I also think about another one now, by the way. I'm not sure what his name was again, but the younger, the boy from Song of Ice and Fire, like from Game of Thrones.
Oh, right, yeah.
The one that is crippled, that falls from in the beginning, falls from and is sort of the new leader or the new seer of the future in the end, who is going to be the emperor, I think, maybe in the end. I'm not sure.
Not spoiler.
Yeah, so I'm. I don't know if it's true. So I hope they haven't spoiled. So I think he's also blind. Maybe, I don't know. This guy is someone who perceives things. I can't imagine what he sees and what he knows, but he sees and knows everything, I guess. So that would be someone, I'd be interested in picking his mind and getting into his memory.
So Yorick, thank you so much for talking to us today. You said to me that your first name, Yorick, is English. I obviously know it best from Hamlet. that's where. So I was so excited to speak to my first Yorick. So that's Yorick's book is the movies showing nowhere. It was published back in April, so it's available now, and highly recommended. And it's a very good book to sit down and read in a short period of time, because it's not a huge like wedge of a book. I read it over a couple of days and thoroughly enjoyed it. So add that to your list of fantasy reads, because it's well worth doing. And I'm just look forward to the potential of it being in a cinema, which will be a very confusing meta moment with the movie showing nowhere in the cinema.
It will be confusing for people, I think.
Yeah, that's going to be wild. Anyway, we look forward to that. Thank you so much for joining us, Yorick.
Thank you very much for having me.
Thanks for listening to Mythmakers podcast, brought to you by the Oxford Centre for Fantasy. Visit oxfordcenterforfantasy.org to join in the fun. Find out about our online courses, in-person stays in Oxford, plus visit our shop for great gifts. Tell a friend and subscribe wherever you find your favourite podcasts worldwide.